Today is Daf Yud Ches. We're holding two lines from the top. So Rabbi Yochanan taught us that Gedoyle Tshuva Shemakaretz Gezardina Shal Adam, and the Gemara came out that's referring to a tzibur. But by a Yachid, then Rabbi Yochanan will be moide that a Gezardin of a Yachid is not Nikras. This is Zak the Gemara. Two lines from the top, Yud Ches and Ram. The Gezardin the Yachid Tanahi. In fact, the Gezardin of Yachid is actually Machlokes Tanaim. The Tanya. There are two people that became bedridden because they were ill. Their sickness is the same. In another case, they went up to the place where they down din in the fashes. Also, they're guilty of the same thing. One of them gets up from the bed, he gets better, and the other one doesn't. In the second case, one gets saved and one does not. Why did one get better from the sickness and one didn't? One got saved from the din in fashes and one not. Zehispal of Anena, one daven and was answered. Zehispal of Lenena, one daven and did not get answered. So from Neimaz and Enena was Elenena. So why Taka did he not get answered? And for the Gemara, Zehispal Tfilah Shlema, which Rashi explains this with Kavana. That's why he was saved. So Nena, he was answered. Was Elohispal Tfilah Shlema? He didn't have with Kavana Loi Nena. That's Shitas or Meir. Rabbi Lazar Amar Kan Koidim Gzardin, Kan La'acher Gzardin. It depends. If it was before the Gzardin, then you could be saved. But if it was after the Gzardin, then it's too late. So the Turi Evan is bothered that the Rebbe Lazar is going on the case of Meir, which seems to be describing that it took place all at one time. So if we're going like the Manda Amra that on Rosh Hashanah is Nidain and on Yom Kippur is the Gzar Din, how do we have that one is before the Gzar Din, one is after the Gzar Din? So the Turi Evan says this Gemara is going to be going like one of the two Shitas Tanoim we had before, either that the Din happens every day or every moment. So then you could have on any given day, one of them is after Gzar Din, one of them is before his Gzar Din. Rabbi Yitzchak Amar, a third shita, Yafet Sa'aka La'adam, it's good to daven, Bein Kodim Zadin, Bein La'achar Zadin, even afterwards. So we have, the Gemara introduced us three shitas Tanaim. So what's the Machlekes Tanaim? So that's a Shaila in the Rishon. And the Ritva learns that the Gemara means the Machlekes is between Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Lazar said it's too late, after Gzardin it's too late, and Rabbi Yitzchak said Yafet Sa'aka. That's how the Ritva learns. The Ram learns the Machlekes is between Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Lazar. Rabbi Meir is the one that said that it could still help if you daven properly, it could help, and Rabbi Lazar says not. And on that comes Rabbi Yitzchak, who holds, like Rabbi Lazar, that after the Gzardin, Taka doesn't help. Nevertheless, says Rabbi Yitzchak, that tefillah does work, it helps to be memayed. That's how he learns. Gzardin did tzibur, mi mikra, Rabbi Yochanan told us that when it's a Gzardin of a tzibur, that could get turned around. Is that true? V'hakasav echad aimer, kapsi meira'a libech, we cleaned your heart from any bad. Uksiv, even if you would wash it with a certain type of soap, and you use also a certain type of soap, still, nichtam avaynech lefanai, a nichtam lashon of kesem, your oven will remain stained in front of me. So the first pasuk is mashma cleansed, it's washed away, it's gone, and the other one's mashma that no, once it's there, even if you try to wash it away, this is going to remain the stain. So my lav kan kodim gzardin. When do we say it's cleaned away? That's before the gzardin. Kan la'achar gzardin. Even after the gzardin, it's too late. You can't remove the stain. And here we're talking about a tzibur. So you see by a tzibur, the gzardin remains intact. I'm thinking about loy. Idi v'di la'achar gzardin. They're really after the gzardin, and still it works like Rabbi Yochanan said. V'loy kasha kan b'gzardin sheishim shua. When did the pasuk describe that it's remained stained? That's when it comes along with the shua. Kan b'gzardin she'enim shua. Rabbi Yochanan was talking about a gzardin of a tzibur that does not get accompanied with the shua, that you could return away the gzardin with shua. Kid Rav Shmuel bar Ami, Rav Shmuel bar Ami. V'Ami lo Rav Shmuel bar Nachmani, Rav Yonasan. Minayin gzardin sheishim shua she'ein nikra. How do we know? What's the makar that gzardin that comes with the shua can't be torn up? Shen Amar. It says, this is referring to Hashem's talking to Shmuel and referring to what happened after Eli's children didn't behave properly, like described in the Yuma Daf Tes. The pasuk says, "V'chein ishbati." This is Hashem speaking. I swear, the Beis Eli concerning the house of Eli, in Yischaper Avoin Beis Eli b'zevach mincha, that their sin will never gain kapara through a carbon or a mincha. So why? So we see. What do we see from here? We see that it doesn't get torn up. That it comes when it comes along with the shua, it's too late. That's it. They'll never get a kapara, not with the zavach, not with the mincha. Nevertheless, says the Gemara, Amar Rava b'zevach mincha in a mischaper, you won't get kapara through karbanis of a mischaper b'tayr, but still learning Torah that does help. Abaya Amar b'zevach mincha in a mischaper b'tayr ubignis chesed and Torah and chesed. So although it's a gzar din that comes with the shua and it's not nikra, but the Torah and the chesed that does help. Rabba, and Rashi wants to have the Girsa is Taka Rabba, not Rava, son of the Girsa of Rava, but Rashi has a raya from Chun that Rava was not a kohen. Maybe he came from the Beis Eli on his mother's side. Rashi likes the Gersa Rabba better. Rabba Babayim the Beis Eli Kosu, they were Kahanim. Rabba Dasik B'Torah Chaya Arba'in Shnin, he lived 40 years. Abaya the Asik B'Torah Chasadim Chaya Shitin Shnin, he lived 60. So you see that the Torah and the Torah together with the Minas Chasadim helped overcome this Gzar Din, even though it came along with the Shua. There was a family in Yerushalayim. Their people were dying, members of the family were dying at the age of 18. They told him about it. What should they do? He said, maybe you come from Eli. It says, all the people raised in your house will die as men. Rashi and Sanhedrin, it says that's at the age of 18. So he told them like this: L'chu ve'isku b'Torah. The eitzah is go be oising a Torah v'chiu, and then you live. So that's what they did. Holchu ve'asku b'Torah. They listened to him, they learned v'chayu, and they lived. V'yikaru ne'sam mishpachas Rabbi Yochanan al Shemai. In his honor, they called him the family by his name. Amr Rav Shmuel bar Yinayim Shmei the Rav. Minayin l'gzar din shel tzibur she'enei nechtam. It doesn't get sealed. Enei nechtam for Gemara v'aksiv. Nechtam avoynech lefanai. That even after you wash, the stain, the oven remains stained. So you see that it is sealed. No, ela afal gam shenechtam nikra means like Rabbi Yochanan. Even though there's a chasima, still it could be torn up. Shenamar pasuk in l'eschana. It says kashem l'keinu b'chol kareinu lov. Which nation is like ours that our Hashem is as close as our Hashem, that He's accessible anytime we call on Him. V'haksiv dirshu Hashem bihimatzai. Seek out Hashem when He can be found. It sounds like it's not accessible at all times. So hasam b'yachid. When is it bihimatzai? Only when He can be found. That's by yachid. Hacha b'tzibur. And over here, when it says b'chol kareinu elov, that's by tzibur. So you see Taka that Rav agrees with Rabbi Yochanan that when it comes to the gzar din of tzibur, then it could be nikra. So b'yachid amos lamaisa, it says bihimatzai, when he can be found. When is that? That's when it's available even for a yachid. It says in the pasuk, if it happened after 10 days, that Yudam Hashem is novel, and Hashem struck novel, and the pasuk is ending, and he died. So Yudam Amayiv D'Tai, what are these 10 days? Amar Yudam Rav Keneged Eser L'Gima Shanasa Novel Avdi David. David sent 10 avodim to Novel to get food. Novel was a wealthy man, and Novel, he was mevazeh David, and he didn't do it. But he did provide one suda each for each one of David's avodim. That was 10, so he had this grace period of 10 days. Amar Nachman Rabbi Bavua Elu Yidam Shem Rosh Hashanah Lem Kippurim was a Sheris Tshuva, giving Novel the opportunity to do tshuva for how he was mevazeh David, and Lamaisi he wasn't shav. So that's why the pasuk ends Vayamis. Rosh Hashanah Kabayel even Lefanu Kidemar. The Mishnah ended that in Rosh Hashanah we all pass in front of Hashem Kibnei Marin. What's made us? My Kibnei Marin. We have 3 pshatim. Hacha here in Bavel Targimu Kibnei Amarna, like sheep that come out of the small door that you push down when you're being ma'aser. So it's single file. Rish Lakish on the Kemailas Beis Marin, like the narrow path of that place Beis Marin. Also you'd have to go single file. Ridam Rish Shmuel, he says Kechayala Shel Beis David. When they would go out to war, they would go out single file to be counted. So all 3 is that same theme. They pass single file one at a time. In spite of the fact that it's Ivrin Zah, but they're all looked at in one glance. That's how the judgment happens. That's our Mishnah. The Mishnah said, my comer, what does the pasuk mean? So I took all the people, I made everyone's nature the same. We see it's not, everybody's different. It means like this. It's going back on the previous pasuk, which said, Hishgiach al kol yoshvei haaretz, and then we say, Hayotzer, the one who formed those yoshvei haaretz. Raya, we're sticking in that word, Yachad Libam Umevel Komasayim. Then he sees all those people in one shot and understands all their ma'asim. Zok the Mishnah, Al Shisha Chadashim Hashluchin Yoitzin. On 6 months of the year, the Shluchin go out to let everybody know whether the outgoing month was a Mali or a Chasar, to know which day was the proper Rosh Chodesh. What are the months? Al Nisan Rebnei HaPesach. They go in Nisan, so they should do the Pesach properly. They travel, Rashi says, all the way till Pesach, besides the Shabbos that are in the interim. Al Av Rebnei HaTainis. They travel for the 8 days till you get to Tisha B'Av, and again, besides for Shabbos. Al El Rebnei Rosh Hashanah. They go out by El in order that you should know when Rosh Hashanah is, because even though that only tells you when Elul is, doesn't tell you when Tishrei is, but in most years, Rashi explains, the Elul will remain the Chaser, and therefore you would know when Rosh Hashanah. As long as you know when Aleph Elul is, you also know when Aleph Rosh Hashanah is. And even, says Taisus, even if you were to make 2 days of Rosh Hashanah al Safek, but you still have to know which day you're starting from. So if you know when Elul is, then you know at least what is day 29 of Elul, what is day 30 of Elul. Al Tishrei, even though they just went out on El, they go again on Tishrei. That way people shouldn't have any doubt and any suffix about Sukkot and about Yom Kippur, about any of the Moedas. So they go out again just to reassure the people. Al Kislev, that's the sixth one, B'nei Chanukah. Because of Chanukah, it's interesting to note that Chanukah is mentioned 7 times in Mishnayos. 1 here, then there's another one in Bava Kama, in Bikurim, in Tainus, in Moed Katan, and twice in Megillah. But this is it. So this is one of the 7. Val Adar B'nei Purim. They go out in Adar for the sake of knowing when Purim means. So Kshay Bezimigdash Kayim Yitzin Af Al Ir B'nei Pesach Katan. They would also go out on Ir because of the Pesach Katan. If somebody was Tamei or B'derech HaChayka by the first one, so he does the Pesach Sheni. The Tri Evan does not like the Girsa Af Al Ir because Af sounds like in addition. There's the 6, and then Bizman Shemesim Tishkayim, there's also Ir, which would be all 7. But his is not true, because when it comes to the Bizman Shemesim Tishkayim, we swap out the one in Av, because as we'll see soon, that tightness turns to Yontiv. So that we swap out the Av and we put an Ir, so it's still going to remain 6. He likes the gears to take out the word Av. So Zakti Gemara, V'leif Kunami at Tammuz v'Tevis. We're going out for the tightness that's in Av, so let's send Shluchim by Tammuz v'Tevis because there's Tanesim there in those months, as we know. The Amr Reb Chana bar Bizna, Amr Reb Shimon, Chasida, Maidichsev. It says a pasuk in Zechariah. Koyamar Hashem Tzavak is Tzoyim Revi, the fast of the 4th month, that's Tammuz. V'tzayim Chamishi, the fast of the 5th, which is Av. V'tzayim Shvi, the fast of the 7th, which is Tishrei. V'tzayim Asiri, the fast of the 10th month, which is Teves. Yeh lebeis Yehuda l'sasin u'l'simcha. It will be for a day of joy. So Karilu, so fact Rev Chana bar Bizna, in the name of Shimon Chasida, Karilu Utzayim, Karilu Usasim v'Simcha. It's on one hand a fast and it's a day of joy. What's shot in the pasuk? So he says, Bizman sheyesh shalom, if the Goyim are not in charge, meaning the bias is around and the Yidden are in charge, you l'sasim l'Simcha, then those are days of joy. But Ein Shalom Tzayim, but once the Churban happens, so then it becomes into a tainus. So all of these in this pasuk are all the tainus b'zman hazeh. So our Mishnah, which is clearly discussing b'zman hazeh, because it said if it would be b'zman hazeh Shkayim, you go out on Ir. So b'zman hazeh, why don't they also go out on all the tanesim, including Tammuz and Teves? And for the Gemara, this is what it means. B'zman sheyesh shalom yilasas and simchataka. When the Yidden are in charge, they have the Beis Hamikdash. It's for joy. Yesh gzeres hamalchus. If there's a gzera, then we have a chiyuv to fast. But ein gzeres hamalchus ve'ein shalom. So the goyim are not on top of we're not on top of the goyim, but at the same time there's not a heavy gzera. So then rotzu musan and rotzu ein musan. Then it becomes optional. Since it's optional, we didn't want to be matriach and send out the shluchim on those months. Yachiv at Gemara Tisha B'av Nami, that's also optional. Why do we send out the shluchim on Av? Amar Papa Shani Tisha B'av Hayil V'Huchbulu B'Tzaris. That stayed intact. That's not optional. That's a chiyuv. The Amar Mar, there's double tzaris on that day. But Tisha B'av Charav Abayis B'Rishayna U'B'Shniya, both the first and the second, was the story on Tisha B'av. V'Nulka the Beitar was captured. V'Nechel Sha'ir and Yerushalayim was plowed over. So now, once we brought the pasuk in Zechariah, we're going to elaborate. Tanya, we have a brayso. Amar Shimon. Arba advarim hayir b'kiva darish. 4 things we b'kiva darshan. V'ani ein darish kamei steba. I disagree with him. This pasuk he darshan like this. Tzayim revi ze tes b'tamuz. That's the fast of Tes B'Tammuz. What's Tes? So Tes says, because in the first Beis Hamikdash, this took place on Tes B'Tammuz, Shabai Hufka Ir, that's when the Yerushalayim was breached, the walls were breached. This that we have Yud Zayin B'Tammuz, says Taisus, that's the second Beis Hamikdash. Although the Yerushalmi learns, says Taisus, that even the first Beis Hamikdash was Yud Zayin, and the reason why it's recorded as Tes, because it was a mistake in their cheshbon. Once they made a mistake, that's how it was recorded. It was really Yud Zayin as well, even by the first. Shanamar, it says in the pasuk b'chodesh revi b'tishal chodesh v'yechazak harav be'ir. The famine intensified in the city. V'lahil lechem la'amaretz. They didn't have bread. V'tibaka ha'ir. So you see that happened in the 4th month in Tammuz. V'amai kore le'revi l'chadashim, because Tammuz is the 4th month of the year, starting from Nisan. Tzayim Chamishi is at Tisha B'Av, continues Rabbi Akiva. This refers to Tisha B'Av Shabbai Nisra Beis Elokeinu, that's when the Beis Hamikdash was burnt. V'amai kore le'chamishi, chamishi l'chadashim, because Av is the 5th month. Tzayim Shvi is at Gimel B'Tishrei, the 3rd of Tishrei, Shabbai Neri Gedali Ben Achikom, that's when he was killed, so we fast. Umi Haragai, Yishmael Ben Nesanya Haragai, he's the one that killed him. The Turi is not sure why it has to tell me that. That's a pasuk in Yirmiyah. The Lamedcha that he's put in this list together with the Tanesim that are associated with the Churban Abayis. The Lamedcha sheshkula misasan shesadikim kisveves beis Elokeinu. It's on par with the burning of the Beis Hamikdash. My korelei shvi'i lechadashim, because Tishrei is the 7th month. Tzayma asiri is asar b'teves. This is the 10th of Teves. Shebay samach malach bavel al Yerushalayim. 18 months earlier is when he laid siege on Yerushalayim. Shenamar pasuk nechas kavidavar Hashem elai b'ashana atishis b'chodesh ha'asiri, the 10th month. Ba'asal lechodesh lemer ben adam kisav lecha es shem hayoyim. Write down this day. Es etzam yem ezeh samach malach bavel el Yerushalayim. So that's when he laid the siege. But my korelei asiri. Why is it the 10th? Because asiri lechadashim Teves is the 10th month. V'aloh hayoyim lichtov rishain. Really, this in time in sequence comes first. the siege that Melech Babel started came first before all the others. Why does it come at the end of the pasuk? Because put the months in the right order. That's Rabbi Kiva. Va'ani, says Reb Shimon, any Yom Rekain, I say not like that. Elatzaima asiri zechamisha b'teves. I agree with him till the end. The very end, the Teves is not Asar b'teves, but it's the 5th of Teves, which followed the summer of the Churban, followed the summer of Tisha B'Av. And there, what happened there? Shebei ba Shmuel l'goylo shehuksa ir. Yechanya, that was sent down to Babel, and Galas Babel already 11 years prior, before the Churban. That's when he heard that the city was conquered. Shenamar v'hi b'shtei asar shana v'asiri b'chamisha l'chodesh, on the 5th of the 10th month of Teves, l'galuseinu ba ilai hapalat, the fugitive came to Yerushalayim. Lemar huksa ha'ir, the city was conquered. V'asiyim Shmuel ki yom sreifa. They made a tainus on that day, the Yom Shmuel, as if it's the day that it was actually burned. V'nirin dvarai midvarav, says Reb Shimon, I hold my pshat is better than Rabbi Kiva's pshat. Shani Amar al Rishon Rishon al Achron Achron. My way, it follows the sequence of time. V'hu Aimer al Rishon Achron. The first thing in the pasuk, which is Tammuz, that really comes after Teves, which is later on in the pasuk. V'al Achron Rishon, the very last thing in the pasuk, which is Asar Teves, happened first in time. So I like my way better. He's only looking at the order of the Chadashim, and that's it. He ignores the actual time sequence. I count not only the Chadashim, but also to the order of the Puranas. The Turi Evan says, he brings that there's a mitzvahs mefarshim, b'shem the Yerushalmi, that Gedalia ben Achikam was really killed on Beis Tishrei, not Gimel. But that year, Beis Tishrei fell out on a Shabbos, and since it fell out on a Shabbos, they pushed it off to Sunday, and became the day that they commemorated on Gimel. He says, according to our Gemara, it doesn't stim, because Reb Shimon said he follows the Seder Hadvarim, which means that the Tishrei, that Gedalia ben Achikam was killed, was immediately following the summer of the Churban, and it preceded the Chamisha Teves of when Yechanya found out about it, because it all follows the Seder. Now we know the Gemara in Erechim says that the Beis Hamikdash was destroyed on a Sunday. If Tisha B'Av is a Sunday, that means Rosh Chodesh Av was on a Shabbos. If Rosh Chodesh Av is on a Shabbos, you're not going to get that Rosh Chodesh Tishrei could be on a Friday in order that Beis Tishrei should be on a Shabbos. It doesn't fit. Even if you make both the months Mali, it doesn't work. That's his ha'ara. Itmar Rav Rabbi Chanina Amri Batla Megillas Tainus. Megillas Tainus was days that the Chazal felt were a Yom Tov, and they added onto this Megillah. All those days in the Megillah were Aser B'Tainus, and some of them, depending on what the Yom Tov was for, were also Aser B'Hesped. So they held that Batla Megillas Tainus, once the Churban came, so now it's Batal, and all those days now become Mutter B'Tainus again. It remains intact, and those days remain Aser B'Tainus and B'Hesed. Rav Chanina Amri Baal Megillas Tainus Hachi Kamer. This is how they touch the pasuk in Zechariah. B'zman sheyesh shalom yu l'sasin u'lesimcha. When there's taka, we have a Beis Hamikdash that's for joy. Ein shalom tzaim. Now v'hanoch nami, the ones in Megillas Tainus, are kihani, are just like the ones in the Tainus, and just like the ones the Tanesim were sasin and simcha, and then that becomes batal. So too the Megillas Tainus, which were yamim tovim during the Zman Habayis, they also become batal after the Churban. Why? Because Hani, who the Tanesim in Zechariah, that goes around the Beis Hamikdash. There was a Churban, so we fasted. There was a binyan, so we have Simcha. That's all associated with the Beis Hamikdash. Aval Hanukkah, the Kaimi, these were independent Yom Tovim. What does that have to do with the fact that the Bayis is no longer around? The Yom Tov remains a Yom Tov. Master of Kahana, Maisa because the Tainus b'Chanukah Blud. They geyser a Tainus tzibur on Chanukah in the city of Lud. V'yared Rabbi Eliezer v'rachatz he bathed. Rabbi Yeshua v'siper and he took a haircut in a display to show that you shouldn't be fasting today. The Turi Evan points out he doesn't understand what Rabbi Yeshua was demonstrating by taking a haircut. It doesn't say anywhere they're not allowed to take a haircut on Tainus tzibur. Bishleim of rechitza is called gufa. The Gemara, the first paragraph of Tainus says you're not allowed to be rechitz. So the fact that it was rechitz, what he was showing, he was demonstrating that it shouldn't be a Tainus. But what Rabbi Yeshua was accomplishing with the haircut, he doesn't know. They said to the people that were fasting, Tzu'u v'his anu, you all have to fast in tshuva. You have to do tshuva al mashas and nisan because you fast on Chanukah. Chanukah is one of the things in the Megillas Tainus. So it's also b'Tainus. So what do you see? That it was still around even after the Churban Habayis, because Rabbi Eliezer and Rabbi Yeshua were Talmidim, Rabbi Yochanan and Zakkai. So they were after the Churban. Rabbi Yosef Shani Chanukah Dika Mitzvah. The reason why they kept it around is because there's mitzvahs associated with it. Who cares? So the Chanukah goes and the mitzvahs. The whole thing goes away. Now, Rabbi Yosef Shani Chanukah, the Mefarsim Nisa, which Rashi explains, it's already been accepted in Klal Yisrael. They treated it Keshal Torah. It would be improper at this point to be mevatel the Chanukah with its mitzvahs. Meiser Rav Acha bar Huna. It says in Megillas Tainus the following date: Betlasa b'Tishrei, on the 3rd of Tishrei is going to be a yontiv. Why? Because Betelas et Karta min Shtaraya. They used to write the Shem Hashem in the shtar, and now that was batal, and that's a reason to make a yontiv. And it explains. They made a gzeira, the Yevanim, they're not allowed to write the Shem Shemayim at all in the shtar. When they overpowered the Natskim, they were victorious. They put the takana back. This is what people write. Such and such a year, because when they heard about it, Amru, they said it'll be bad. He's going to pay up his chayv. So ubitlam, they were mevatel this idea of putting the Shem Hashem in the shtar. And Rashi explains, because it's very difficult to mevatel something that people are already accustomed to. So the fact that it actually worked was nothing short of a nace they held, and therefore they made a yontiv about it. Now, they're adding onto it. No, this was still while they're basing Mishkaim, so it still wasn't yet batal. And then the Gemara will continue into this city. We'll continue tomorrow with Hashanah. So today we learned what's the halacha by a gzar din. Is it nikra or not? So by a yachid is a machlekes tanaim. By a tzibur we say yes, except if it's a gzar din sheyesh by shvua. Nevertheless, even in that case, when there's a shvua, still Torah and chesed help. The shluchim go out in 6 months. Nisan, Av, Elul, Tishrei, Kislev, and Adar. The pasuk in Zechariah that talks about the Tanesim that are associated with Churban Abayis, according to Bikiva, the last thing in that pasuk when it says Tevis, that's referring to Asar b'Tevis, which is really the first thing in time. According to Reb Shimon, it's referring to Chamisha b'Tevis when the Shmuah came to Bavel, and that's Taka came last. And finally, there's a machlokes amarayim if the Megillas Tainus was batal or not after the Churban, but everybody agrees that Chanukah was not batal.